The phone buzzing at 3:17 a.m. wasn't unusual. What was unusual was seeing her name flash across the screen after 6 months of silence. 6 months since the divorce. 6 months since I'd walked away from the biggest lie of my life. I stared at the screen for a few rings, then picked up. Hello. Well, thank God you picked up. Her voice was frantic, breathless. I know we haven't talked, but this is an emergency. It's about our son. Your son. I corrected, my voice flat. A pause. Then she pressed on. Fine, whatever, not the point. Her words tumbled out faster. He's in the hospital right now. Emergency room. He needs surgery tonight. They're saying if we don't do this procedure within the next few hours, he could end up with chronic pain for the rest of his life. My insurance only covers part of it, and I'm short $25,000. I need it transferred now. I sat up properly in bed, fully awake now. The desperation in her voice sounded genuine enough. Convincing, even. But I'd watched her perform before. I'd believed those performances for 8 years. What kind of surgery? I kept my tone neutral. Does it matter right now? He's 8 years old, and he's terrified and in pain, and the doctors are. What kind of surgery? I said each word separately, clearly. She stumbled. It's complicated medical terminology. Intestinal something. Some kind of blockage, maybe? The doctors used all these technical words I couldn't follow, but the point is, I need that money or he's going to suffer. Don't you care about that? There it was. The guilt angle. Textbook manipulation. I glanced at my clock. 3:19 a.m. No hospital administrator calls parents about elective surgery in the dead of night. No surgeon schedules emergency procedures that happen to cost exactly $25,000 out of pocket. The number was too round, too specific, too convenient. Which hospital are you at? I asked. St. Vincent's Memorial. Pediatric Wing, room 412. You can come see him yourself if you don't believe me. But I need that money transferred first or they won't even start preparing. Contact his biological father. I said, my voice completely calm. Complete silence on her end. Then, much quieter now. What did you just say? You heard me clearly. Call Easton. Or whoever else it might turn out to be. You kept detailed enough records of your social life back then. I'm sure you still have the number. How dare you bring that up when our child is? I'm going back to sleep now. Do not call this number again. I ended the call. The phone lit up within 5 seconds. Her name appeared on screen. I declined it. It rang again immediately. Declined again. On the third attempt, I simply turned the ringer off completely and set the phone face down on the nightstand. The entire conversation had lasted maybe 2.5 minutes. I settled back into my pillow and pulled the blanket over my shoulder. My heart rate was perfectly steady. No anger, no guilt eating at me, no second thoughts about my decision. Just the quiet, clean satisfaction that comes from holding firm to a boundary you've set for yourself. She played her cards. I'd called her bluff, and now I was going back to sleep. When my alarm went off at 6:30 a.m., I checked my phone out of habit. 14 missed calls from her. 23 text messages. I could see the previews without opening them. Please, you're a monster. He's asking for you. I can't believe you. I selected them all and hit delete without reading further. Then I got up, showered, dressed, and headed out for work like it was any other Thursday morning. By 9:15 a.m., I was sitting at my desk at the community center where I worked as a facilities coordinator. Nothing fancy, not particularly high-paying, but it was honest work that kept my bills paid and my life simple. I had my second cup of coffee in hand, reviewing the maintenance schedule for the basketball court repairs we had coming up when my phone rang. Unknown number. Local area code, though. I normally let unknown numbers go straight to voicemail, but something about the timing made me pick up this one. Hello. Good morning. This is Detective Hardy with the Metro Police Department. Am I speaking with? He said my full name, first and last. Yes, sir. That's me. I confirmed, setting my coffee down carefully. I need to ask you some questions about your relationship with Summer McKenzie. Is this a convenient time? Summer, my ex-wife. The woman who'd been desperately calling me 6 hours ago. I straightened in my chair. Yes, detective, I said. Now works fine. What's this about? We received a call early this morning regarding Ms. McKenzie, Detective Hardy said. She was arrested around 4 a.m. I'm trying to establish a timeline. When was the last time you had contact with her? She called me at 3:17 a.m. I said. Woke me up. And what was the nature of that call? I leaned back in my chair. She wanted $25,000. Said her son needed emergency surgery, and if I didn't wire the money immediately, he'd be in pain for life. There was a pause. Her son, not yours. Correct. Not mine. I found out about 4 months ago that the boy I raised for 8 years isn't biologically mine. DNA test confirmed it. We divorced shortly after. I see. I could hear him writing something down. And how did you respond to her request? I told her to contact the biological father. Then I hung up and went back to sleep. You didn't send any money? No. Did you believe the emergency was genuine? I considered that. No. The whole thing felt off. Middle of the night, exact dollar amount, vague medical details. She's tried similar tactics before, just never this dramatic. What kind of tactics? After the divorce, she'd call asking for money. Always some crisis. Car broke down, utilities getting shut off, needed groceries. I said no every time. This was just the latest version. Detective Hardy was quiet for a moment. Mister, he used my last name. I need to inform you that there was no surgery scheduled. No medical emergency at all. The child had a minor illness, already being treated with basic medication. Ms. McKenzie fabricated the entire story. I wasn't surprised, but I let him continue. She attempted the same call with the biological father approximately 20 minutes after she spoke with you. He became suspicious and contacted us. When officers arrived at her residence to perform a wellness check on the child, they discovered she'd been withholding his prescribed antibiotics to make his condition appear worse than it was. My jaw tightened. Using a sick kid as a prop. That was a new low, even for her. The child is currently safe with Child Protective Services, he continued. Ms. McKenzie has been charged with attempted fraud and child endangerment. We're building the case, and your phone records may be relevant. Would you be willing to provide a statement? Absolutely, I said. Whatever you need. Do you happen to have a recording of the call? I did actually. I'd set up automatic call recording on my phone 6 months ago, right after the divorce. Not because I expected this specifically, but because I'd learned to document everything where she was concerned. I do. I can send it to you. That would be extremely helpful. He gave me an email address. One more question. Do you have any intention of pursuing custody or visitation rights regarding the child? No. I answered without hesitation. He's not my biological son, and according to the divorce agreement, I have no legal ties to him. I wish him well, but I'm not his father. Understood. We'll be in touch if we need anything else. Thank you for your cooperation. After he hung up, I sat there for a minute, staring at my computer screen without really seeing it. She'd actually done it. Faked a medical emergency. Used her own kid as bait. And when that didn't work on me, she'd tried the same trick on Easton. Except Easton, apparently, was smarter than she'd counted on. I pulled up my call recording app, found the 3 a.m. conversation, and sent it to Detective Hardy's email. Then I went back to my work schedule like nothing had happened. Because really, nothing had. This was just summer being summer. The only difference was that this time, there'd be actual consequences. And honestly, it was about time. The rest of Thursday passed quietly. I finished my shift, stopped by the grocery store on the way home, made dinner, watched some television. Normal life. The kind of boring, predictable routine I'd grown to appreciate after years of chaos. Friday morning brought a new development. My phone rang around 10 a.m. Different detective this time. A woman who introduced herself as Detective Paige Stein from Child Protective Services Investigations. I'm calling about the McKenzie case, she said. Detective Hardy shared your statement with our department. I wanted to follow up on a few details regarding your relationship with the minor child involved. Sure, I said, stepping away from the supply closet I'd been inventorying. What do you need to know? You stated that you raised the child for 8 years before discovering he wasn't biologically yours. Can you walk me through that discovery? I told this story to lawyers already, but I told it again. About 4 months ago, the boy had a bad reaction to some medication. Doctor wanted to run tests, including genetic screening to check for any hereditary conditions. That's when it came up. The markers didn't match mine at all. I requested a formal paternity test to be certain. Results came back negative. And how did Ms. McKenzie react when you confronted her? She admitted it immediately. Said she'd had an affair 7 months before the boy was born. She knew there was a chance he wasn't mine, but never said anything. Just let me believe I was the father. Did she express remorse? I almost laughed. No. She got defensive. Said it didn't matter because I'd bonded with him anyway, that biology was irrelevant, that I was being selfish for caring about something that happened years ago. When I filed for divorce, she tried to argue I should still be legally responsible for child support since I'd acted as his father. What was the court's decision on that? Judge sided with me. No biological relationship, no prior adoption, no legal obligation. Clean break. Detective Stein was quiet for a moment. I have to ask this, and I know it may be uncomfortable. Do you have any emotional attachment to the child at this point? I'd thought about this question a lot over the past few months. I did, I said honestly. For 8 years, I thought he was my son. I loved him like he was mine. But once I found out the truth, something shifted. Not overnight, but gradually. It felt like loving someone based on a lie. When I looked at him, all I could see was proof of her betrayal. That's not fair to him, and I recognized that. Which is why I didn't fight for any kind of custody or visitation. He deserves better than someone who's going to resent him for existing. That's a remarkably self-aware answer, she said. It's an honest one. The reason I'm asking is because we're trying to place the child appropriately. The biological father, Easton Glass, has been located. He was initially resistant to involvement, but he's agreed to a paternity test. If it confirms what Ms. McKenzie claims, he may be required to take custody. Good, I said. The kid needs stability. Actual family, not whatever mess Summers created. There's one more thing you should know, Detective Stein continued. This wasn't Ms. McKenzie's first attempt at this type of fraud. We found evidence of at least 3 other instances over the past 2 years where she fabricated emergencies to extract money from various people. Family members, ex-boyfriends, even a former employer. Most didn't press charges, but the pattern is clear. 3 other times. She'd been running this con repeatedly and getting away with it. Does that surprise you? Detective Stein asked. No, I admitted. It explains a lot, actually. Thank you for letting me know. We may need you to testify if this goes to trial. Would you be willing? Absolutely. Whatever helps. After we hung up, I stood there in the empty hallway of the community center, phone still in my hand. Summer had been scamming people for years. The surgery story wasn't desperation. It was her playbook, and I'd almost fallen for variations of it dozens of times before I finally wised up. The only reason I hadn't sent that money at 3 a.m. was because I'd already learned my lesson the hard way. I put my phone away and went back to work. Some people never change. You just have to decide whether you're going to keep letting them pull you down with them. I'd made my choice 4 months ago, and I hadn't looked back since. The weekend came and went without incident. I caught up on household chores, fixed a leaky faucet, watched a couple of games on TV. Quiet. Simple. Exactly what I needed. Monday afternoon, things got interesting again. I was in the middle of coordinating with a contractor about the gym floor refinishing when my phone buzzed. Text message from an unknown number. This is Jeffrey, Easton's brother. We need to talk. I stared at the message for a second, then typed back. About what? The response came quickly. About Summer, and the situation with my nephew. Can you meet me somewhere? I hesitated. Getting involved further wasn't something I'd planned on, but curiosity got the better of me. Coffee place on 5th Street. Tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. I'll be there. Tuesday morning, I showed up 10 minutes early. The coffee shop was one of those local spots, not a chain, with mismatched furniture and genuinely good espresso. I ordered black coffee and took a seat near the window. Jeffrey arrived right on time. Tall guy, probably mid-30s, wearing a work jacket with a construction company logo. He spotted me immediately, bought his own coffee, and sat down across from me. Thanks for meeting me, he said, extending his hand. I shook it. What's this about? He didn't waste time. My brother's panicking. The paternity test came back yesterday. The kid's his. Now the state's saying he needs to step up or they're putting the boy in foster care. Easton's got a wife and 2 kids of his own now. This whole thing is blowing up his life. I sipped my coffee and waited. He wants to know if you'd consider taking the kid instead. I set my cup down. Excuse me. Look, I know it's a lot to ask, but you raised him for 8 years. You were his dad. The kid knows you, trusts you. This would be less traumatic for him than being thrown at a stranger or into the system. I'm not his father, I said flatly. Biology matters. That's what the court agreed. That's why I'm not paying child support. I get that, but nothing. I kept my voice level but firm. Your brother made a choice when he slept with my wife. He created a kid. Now he gets to deal with that. I don't. Jeffrey looked uncomfortable. Easton didn't know about the kid until last week. And I didn't know the kid wasn't mine until 4 months ago. We've both been lied to. The difference is, his DNA is actually in that boy. Mine isn't. The kid's been asking for you, Jeffrey said quietly. CPS told us. He doesn't understand why you're not visiting. That hit differently than I expected. I took a breath. That's not my fault, I said. Summer created this mess. She lied to me. She lied to your brother. She used that child as a weapon to manipulate people. I feel bad for the kid. I genuinely do. But taking him back doesn't fix anything. It just teaches him that boundaries don't matter and that people can lie their way back into your life. So that's it. You're just walking away. I already walked away 4 months ago. This conversation is 4 months too late. I stood up. Your brother needs to be a father to his son. Not my problem to solve. Jeffrey stood too, frustration clear on his face. You're really okay with a kid going into foster care? He's not going into foster care. He's going to his biological father, who has the resources and responsibility to raise him. Easton has a wife, a home, presumably a job. He can handle this. He just doesn't want to. His wife is threatening to leave him over it. Then he's got a choice to make, I said. Welcome to consequences. We all have to live with them eventually. I left money on the table for my coffee and walked out. Driving back to work, I kept my hands steady on the wheel, my breathing even. The kid asking for me. That part stung more than I wanted to admit. But I meant what I said. Taking him back would be based on guilt, not love. And kids deserve better than that. Easton needed to step up. His wife needed to understand that children don't disappear just because they're inconvenient. And Summer needed to face the consequences of what she'd done. My part in this was over. I'd already paid my dues for someone else's lies. Not doing it again. 3 weeks later, I got a call from Detective Hardy again. Just wanted to update you on the case, he said. Ms. McKenzie accepted a plea deal. She pled guilty to attempted fraud and child endangerment. She'll serve 6 months, suspended sentence, 3 years probation, mandatory counseling, and community service. She also permanently lost custody. And the boy, living with his biological father now. Easton Glass and his wife decided to make it work. They're in family counseling. From what CPS tells me, the transition's been rough, but the kid's adjusting. I felt something loosen in my chest. Relief, maybe. The kid had a home. A genuine one. That's good to hear. There's one more thing, Hardy said. Ms. McKenzie is requesting to speak with you. Supervised, of course. Through her lawyer. She says she wants to apologize. I almost laughed. No. You sure? It might give you closure. I already have closure, detective. I closed that door 4 months ago when I filed for divorce. I don't need to hear whatever she thinks will make her feel better about herself. Fair enough. I'll let her attorney know. Is that everything? One last detail. During our investigation, we discovered she'd been planning this for weeks. She researched how much emergency surgeries typically cost, picked a condition that sounded serious but vague enough that you wouldn't question it, even practiced the phone call with a friend. This wasn't spontaneous desperation. This was calculated. That shouldn't have surprised me, but somehow it still did. Thank you for telling me, I said. After he hung up, I sat there thinking about that. Weeks of planning. She'd chosen me specifically because she thought I'd be the easiest target. The guilt-ridden ex-husband who'd feel responsible for the kid he'd raised. She'd been wrong. A month after that, I was leaving work when I saw someone waiting by my truck. For a second, my body tensed, thinking it might be Summer somehow. But it was a woman I didn't recognize. Well-dressed, professional-looking, about my age. Can I help you? I asked cautiously. Are you? She said my name. Yes. I'm Avery, Easton's wife. She offered her hand. I shook it, confused. I wanted to thank you. For what? For saying no. She smiled slightly. When Jeffrey told us you wouldn't take the boy back, I was angry at first. Thought you were being cruel. But then I realized something. If you'd said yes, Easton would have let you. He would have walked away from his responsibility and let another man clean up his mess. Again, she paused, choosing her words carefully. Making him step up was the best thing that could have happened. To him, to me, to our marriage, and especially to that little boy. Owen needed his actual father, not someone doing it out of obligation or guilt. So thank you for having the strength to say no when it would have been easier to say yes. I didn't know what to say to that. How's the kid doing? I asked instead. Better. He started calling Easton Dad, slowly bonding with his half-siblings. He still mentions you sometimes, but less and less. He's building a new life. A more honest one. That's what matters, I said. Avery nodded. Summer tried to contact me last week. From wherever she's doing her community service. Wanted to explain her side of things. I blocked her number. Good call. Yeah. She adjusted her purse on her shoulder. Anyway, I just wanted you to know that what you did, it helped. Even if it didn't feel like it at the time. She walked back to her car and drove away. I got in my truck and sat there for a minute, hands on the steering wheel. The kid was adjusting, building a relationship with his actual father, learning that family could be messy and complicated but still functional. And I was here, still standing, still moving forward. No regrets, no looking back, just the quiet confidence that comes from knowing you made the right choice, even when it was the harder one. I started the engine and headed home. 6 months after that 3 a.m. phone call, I was living a completely different life. Not different in the dramatic sense. I didn't move across the country, didn't change careers, didn't reinvent myself, but different in the ways that actually mattered. Quieter, cleaner, more honest. I'd started taking evening classes at the community college. Nothing fancy, just some business management courses. Figured if I was going to keep working at the community center, I might as well position myself for advancement eventually. The work kept me busy, kept my mind focused forward instead of backward. One Thursday evening in late autumn, I was leaving class when my phone rang. Unknown number again, but this time I recognized the area code. County Courthouse. I answered. This is Officer Reed Dudley from the probation department. I'm calling regarding Summer McKenzie's case. Do you have a moment? Sure, I said, unlocking my truck but not getting in yet. Ms. McKenzie has completed her community service hours and her mandated counseling sessions. As part of her probation review, she's required to make amends with individuals affected by her actions. Your name is on that list. She's requesting permission to send you a letter. You have the right to refuse. I leaned against my truck, watching the parking lot empty out as other students headed home. What happens if I refuse? Nothing changes for her probation status. This is optional for victims. We just need your answer on record. I thought about it. 6 months ago, I would have said no immediately. But now, I was curious what she could possibly have to say. She can send it, I said, but I'm not promising to read it, and I'm definitely not responding. Understood. It'll come through official channels, screened by our office first. Should arrive within 2 weeks. The letter showed up 12 days later. Plain envelope, county seal, my name typed on the label. I set it on my kitchen counter and left it there for 3 days before I finally opened it. The letter was handwritten. Her handwriting, the same one I used to see on grocery lists and birthday cards. It started with the expected apologies. Sorry for lying. Sorry for the manipulation. Sorry for using Owen as a pawn. Standard stuff that sounded like it came straight from her court-mandated therapy sessions. But then it shifted. I've spent 6 months in counseling trying to understand why I do this. Why I manipulate. Why I lie. Why I always take the easy path even when it hurts people I claim to care about. My therapist says I have patterns that go back to childhood. That I learned early that being helpless gets you attention. That creating crises makes people focus on you. That tears are tools. She wrote about the affair with Easton, how it had meant nothing, how she'd panicked when she got pregnant and just decided to pretend it was mine because I was stable and safe and wouldn't leave. I robbed you of 8 years, she wrote. 8 years of loving a child who wasn't yours, building a life on a foundation of lies. And when you found out, instead of owning what I'd done, I tried to make you the villain for caring about the truth. I wanted you to be the bad guy so I wouldn't have to be. The next part was harder to read. Owen asks about you sometimes. He's doing better with Easton now, but he still remembers you. He asked me once why you stopped being his dad. I told him the truth, age-appropriate version, that I'd lied to you, that you weren't his biological father, and that you had every right to start a new life without us. He cried, but he understood more than I expected an 8-year-old to understand. She ended it simply. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't even think I deserve it. But I wanted you to know that you were right. About all of it. The boundaries you set, the way you refused to let me manipulate you anymore. Even hanging up on me that night when I tried the surgery scam. You saw through it immediately. Part of me respected that even while I hated you for it. You're the only person who ever consistently said no to me. And you were right to do it. I hope you're doing well. I hope you found peace. You earned it. Summer. I read the letter twice, then folded it back up and put it in a drawer. She was right about one thing. I had found peace. Not because I'd gotten revenge, or because she'd suffered consequences, or even because she'd apologized. Those things didn't factor into it. I'd found peace because I'd learned something crucial. You can love someone, invest years in them, build a life with them, and still choose to walk away when the foundation turns out to be rotten. Walking away doesn't make you heartless. It makes you honest. 2 weeks later, I ran into Jeffrey at a hardware store. He was buying supplies for some renovation project. I was picking up materials for fixing the community center storage shed. We made eye contact across the aisle. He nodded. I nodded back. "How's your brother doing?" I asked, surprising myself. "Better," Jeffrey said. "He and Avery are in a good place. Owen's thriving. Started soccer, making friends at his new school. Calls Easton dad, without hesitation now. That's good." "Yeah." Jeffrey paused. "Look, I was pretty pushy when we met before, asking you to take him back. I get why you said no now. It needed to be Easton. Had to be. Appreciate that," I said. We talked for another minute about nothing important, then went our separate ways. No drama, no tension. Just two guys who'd been caught in someone else's mess and made it out the other side. That night, I was home making dinner, nothing fancy, just grilled chicken and vegetables, when I realized something. I hadn't thought about Summer in days. Maybe a week. The whole situation that had consumed months of my life had faded to background noise. Not forgotten, but no longer occupying space in my head. I'd moved on. Genuinely, completely moved on. The kid was safe. The biological father had stepped up. Summer was facing her issues, whether she'd actually change or not remained to be seen. And I was here, building a life that was mine alone, based on truth instead of lies. I ate my dinner in comfortable silence, then spent the evening studying for an exam. Simple, quiet, honest. Some people confuse compassion with being a doormat. They think setting boundaries makes you cold, that walking away from toxicity makes you cruel, that refusing to be manipulated means you lack empathy. They're wrong. Real compassion means knowing when helping someone actually hurts them more. Real strength means saying no when yes would be easier. Real love means letting go when holding on would poison both of you. I learned that the hard way, but I learned it, and that made all the difference.